Right, yeah, hey, so thanks for fantastic intro, and great to be here and great to see so many of you here. So I think this is a great example of the fact that this project is kind of interesting for lots of people. And so I actually got involved with getting this tunnel done exactly because of that reason, that we had a discussion at latitude 59, so kind of like the slush of Estonia and Tallinn. That was actually the other year. And then always when you go to Tallinn, as many of us do, we end up talking about, yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have a tunnel between Helsinki and Tallinn? And again, we were there at the dinner and we had this same discussion, and then it was kind of like, yeah, but why are we only talking about it? Why don't we make it like real? So then I said, okay, so let's make it happen. And then we happened to have the then foreign minister of Estonia, this lady, I don't remember her name now, but she was sitting in the table next to us at the dinner at latitude 59, and then I just walked over there and said that actually we now decided to build this tunnel. And then she asked me that, oh, so who exactly? And I said, yeah, me and a few of my friends in the table over there. and then of course her reaction was a little bit like that, okay, yeah, this is, like some kind of joke. And then as these things go, that was also the same week that they announced that they had completed the construction of the Gotthard tunnel. That is actually currently the longest railroad tunnel anywhere on the planet. And so it, like, very interesting timing. That was, I think, announced at the completion the following day after I said, okay, we're going to make this tunnel happen. Then the weekend after latitude 59, there was a hackathon for the construction industry here in Finland. And I was asked to do kind of like an inspirational talk about, how we could apply a bit of this like entrepreneurial thinking and startup thinking to the construction industry. And then, of course, I used the example of the biggest project I was involved with when it comes to construction, so the Tallinn tunnel. And then I was talking about that, and even actually like we have here, no matter how small or how big the event, typically whatever you say ends up on the internet, live streamed or capture for like the future. So then what happened was that I was talking about this tunnel, and then the following day, after this hackathon, I got a call from Helsingin Sanomat, one of the reporters who had seen that, oh, Peter, I saw this like announcement that you're building this tunnel, between Helsinki and Tallinn. This must be like some kind of joke, right? I said, no, we're like very serious about this. And then he was, okay, but like who exactly is building this? And I said, yeah, it's actually me and a few of my friends. And then it's like, okay, yeah, right, and and then they did a small story about, okay, that this tunnel project is happening. And then a little bit after that, there had also been discussion about getting this official, project going. We're gonna make some studies about the feasibility. So this official feasibility study project got some funding from the EU, and they got started. And then we actually went to meet with Kari Ruohonen and the guys who are running kind of like the official feasibility study project, and shared kind of like our plans and all of that. Then it was also interesting that I then looked into this Gotthard tunnel project. Turned out that our friends from Pöyry have been heavily involved in that, so we started talking to the Pöyry guys, and then also to A-Insinöörit. We actually have Timo from there. So Pöyry and A-Insinöörit, they have built most of the underground projects, tunnels, and parking and like what have you. Those two companies here in Finland been involved in that, and then, as I said, Pöyry was involved in the Gotthard tunnel project. Of course, I got a bit concerned when I heard that it took about 20 years to build the Gotthard tunnel, because early on I said that we're going to build this in 5 years. And at the time I didn't know anything, and I can't claim to be an expert on tunnel construction, but of course during the last year I've learned a lot about how to build tunnels, and actually it turns out that it's very easy to build this in way less than 5 years. But before we go into the more technical detail on the tunnel, I think the tunnel is just a tunnel, so they're not like super exciting. It's kind of like boring infrastructure. But what is very important here, I think, that we realize that we are in a unique, exceptional geographic location. So we really, when you look at Helsinki and Tallinn, we are actually at the heart of Eurasia. We have Europe on one side, Asia on the other side. In our home market, it's not like 5 million people here in Finland, but it's actually 5 billion people. Europe, Asia, our home market. And this is something that you might get confused when you look at the various maps of Europe and the EU maps, where you see Europe, and in the upper right-hand corner you have Estonia, and then a small piece of Finland. Typically you don't fit like even all of Finland, you have like a piece of southern Finland, and it looks like we're somehow at the periphery of everything. But then you should actually look at this map, and provided by our friends from Finnair. And of course, a big part of the success of Finnair is that they very early on realized that, hey, we are at the heart of Eurasia. All the flights from Europe to Asia actually go over here. And this is something that you don't realize if you look at the 2D projections, all these traditional map projections. When you look at the globe and you look at like the reality in 3D, you realize that that is actually true. And I mean, I go to China typically like twice a month. So some might think that's like a lot, but actually it's like in the neighborhood. I get on a flight, actually Friday I go to Beijing again. Bit over 6 hours I'm in Beijing, bit over 7 hours I'm in Shanghai. So it's like in our neighborhood. So I think that this is something that is very, very important, that we forget about this, like being somehow at the periphery or, like at the edges of Europe. We're actually right here at the center of all of Eurasia. So around us we have 5 billion people. So that's pretty cool. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity for us to capture that. Then if you look at now the Helsinki-Tallinn metropolitan area. So we have over 2 million people here in our little metro area. And of course it's not huge compared to, if you look at, take China again as an example, there are 75 cities in China that have more people than all of Finland. So again, 2 million is not a lot. But then if you look at this like regional competition, Helsinki and Tallinn together, we are bigger than Stockholm. So that small regional city in the country next door, bigger than Amsterdam. So it's as a metropolitan area, it starts to be fairly interesting. And of course, if you look at what we are doing here, we have fantastic startups, we have fantastic startup ecosystem in both Helsinki and Tallinn. And when we join forces, it actually becomes very, very interesting. And again, I think going forward, of course, we always talk about this, that with digital technology, who cares about like physical proximity? But I think that it's even more important now, to really spearhead innovation and make stuff happen. We have to have enough density, enough talent density. So physical proximity actually matters. And I mean, look at Silicon Valley, or look at, like the wine industry. For some reason, it's concentrated in places like France, and there's lots of people who make wine. Or if you look at, if you're fans of like Formula 1 racing, for some reason, all the teams are on this little piece of land on that like little island at the periphery of Europe called the UK, for some reason, because like physical proximity matters. So I think that again, when we are going forward, we need to create enough gravity. So what we're creating here with Helsinki and Tallinn, and the tunnel is enabling this center of gravity. Very, very important. And then what the tunnel is all about, it's actually about enabling future growth. So I mentioned already Stockholm, I mentioned Silicon Valley. Guess what? We want to make sure that the Helsinki-Tallinn metropolitan area doesn't end up becoming the next Stockholm or the next Silicon Valley. So what do I mean by that? If I talk to my friends at Spotify, what is the biggest challenge for Spotify in Sweden right now? Housing. They can't attract talent because the housing prices are crazy. Okay, they've been going down a bit, but they're still like not very affordable. Or if I talk to my friends in Silicon Valley, you might have a good job at, like Google or Facebook or you name it. But because of the housing, you might be, like a very well-paid engineer from India living in Silicon Valley. Where do you live? You live in a room with 11 other people from India that also have very well-paid jobs at Google or Facebook or whatever. So is that like a life worth living? Maybe not, but I mean, you have a great job, but you end up living in a small room with many other people. So we want to make sure that we can provide affordable housing. So now when you look at the tunnel here, the tunnel of course is interesting, but what is even more interesting is what is happening above ground. So we will have 4 stations. So if you look at, we start from Tallinn, we have the current design and thinking is that the station on the Tallinn side will be in Ülemiste, so close to the airport. Why? Because that is an area where we have space for creating housing for 50,000 people. So the design here for the 4 stations along the tunnel, all of them will have housing for 50,000 people. So we have the Tallinn station, the Island station, the Otaniemi-Keilaniemi or Ota-Keila station, and the airport station. 4 stations, 50,000 people around all of them, housing for 200,000 plus new people in the Helsinki-Tallinn metropolitan area. So again, enabling the future growth and making sure that we don't run into this kind of problem that you end up living with 11 other people in the same room. So you can have like a room or even a complete apartment for yourself. So I think that is something that it's very important to keep in mind, that we need to plan for the future growth. Okay, then a little bit about about making this tunnel happen. So you of course always have to have a bit about technology. So if you look at now the tunnel project, so yes, we're enabling future growth. We're building these fantastic station areas, and we will have rest of the team here talking about that. So Kim will talk after me and share a bit about that, and then also Tero from Fira, so one of our consortium members, about what the station areas will look like, and we'll share some visuals on the current architecture and design. But if you then go back below ground a little bit, and yeah, by the way, there's going to be plenty of time for questions and answers after the presentation, so don't worry, you'll get a chance to ask lots of difficult questions hopefully, and lots of comments. But one thing, if you look at the project, so right now we're optimizing everything for speed. We want to build this as fast as possible, because when you do that you save a lot of money. And started by setting out the goal that okay, let's build this in 5 years. Okay, then I heard that the Gotthard tunnel took almost 20 years. So of course I got a bit concerned that, okay, wait a minute, that this might be a bit difficult. Okay, then I actually talked to the guys from Pöyry and A-Insinöörit and some of the other guys, and they said that this is actually very easy, because the Gotthard tunnel was built under these things called the Alps, lots of stuff. Here it's very easy. We're building under the sea, so there is nothing really, bit of water, but nothing between us and the tunnel. So what we will do to make this tunnel construction go very fast, of course we'll use the latest and greatest TBMs, tunnel boring machines. There's been a lot of development in that area in China in particular, so they have built by far the most infrastructure over the last tens of years. So they have the best TBMs anywhere on the planet. There are some other people making some boring companies elsewhere in the world, but they don't really know about building tunnels. But yeah, let's not go there. But they're selling hats, so that's cool. Anyway, we'll use the latest and greatest TBMs, but we're not gonna only do that. We're actually gonna drill in 6 different directions at any given time. So we'll drill from the coast of Finland, from the coast of Estonia, and then I mentioned that there is the island station, 15 kilometers off the coast of Helsinki. And then there's also a smaller island off the coast of Tallinn. So we will also start drilling at the islands in both directions. So we drill from the Helsinki side, from the island towards Helsinki, towards Tallinn, and from the other island towards Tallinn, towards Helsinki, and then from Tallinn towards Helsinki. different directions any given time. So we will have 12 of these TBMs, and they cost like 30 million a pop. So there's already like, but it's not like that significant when we're talking about a tunnel project where the overall budget is, the current estimate is 15 billion euros. So then if you have to buy a few TBMs, it's no big deal. But anyway, so we will have 12 of these TBMs making 2 pipes, 70 meters in diameter. Why? Because we want to be future-proof. We're not building a tunnel for like 10 years, but these last for like 100 or 200 years. So currently the plan is that we will put in existing fast rail. So what is widely used in China, in Japan. So in China the trains typically go 330 kilometers an hour, and that is just like standard fast rail. So no hyperloop or any of these technologies needed. So we're eliminating technology risk. It's all like current existing technology. Okay, but the reason for the 70-meter diameter is that, okay, if Hyperloop becomes relevant like in 34 or, like sometime in the 30s, we can put in that later. So we want to build the physical infrastructure that is future-proof for whatever technology might become available, in the next 50 years or in the next 100 years. Because we don't build these like tunnels every day. It's a significant cost and significant time to actually make this happen. But anyway, so that's kind of like the way we will make this tunnel happen in less than 5 years. Okay, currently we actually picked the date when we want to operate the first trains, and it's actually a bit further out than 5 years, so we put in a bit of buffer for getting the required like permits and stuff like that. So currently we've said that, okay, the 24th of December 24 we'll have the trains running, because it's like a nice Christmas present for all of us. So it's an easy date to kind of like remember, but probably we'll be able to do this even faster. But that's kind of like a easy date to remember anyway. Then we're not stopping there. So I think that besides looking at the Helsinki-Tallinn metropolitan area, we're also looking at the other cities in the neighborhood. So of course we want to have much faster connectivity to Turku and Tampere. So half an hour train connection to both of those cities. And then there's also a very important other metropolitan area in our neighborhood, like right here, St. Petersburg, 5 million people. So in the future you'll get from the airport in Helsinki to St. Petersburg in a bit over an hour, which again makes the whole finest Bay Area very, very interesting. And again, as I said, it's all about creating gravity and enough talent density. So we're not stopping by just making this little tunnel between Helsinki and Tallinn, but also then looking at the bigger, like finest Bay Area. So I think that pretty much like stop there, but this is some of the visualization. So this is the Otakela area. Again, how we'll put like 50,000 people into that area. We're the furthest along with the planning for that station area. So again, some of these interesting, those towers there are actually 102 floors, tallest buildings in Europe, 1 floor more than the Federation Tower in Moscow. We didn't go crazy and build like the tallest buildings on the planet, because then you actually have to build like insanely tall buildings. But at least, like tallest buildings in Europe is a bit of a, like claim to fame to have. So those are pretty cool. And they actually provide housing for 5,000 people a piece. So that's how we get like enough density going. Then if we look at like where we're at with this program right now. At Slush we announced that we signed the MOU between the consortium members. So we have Pöyry, A-Insinöörit, Fira and the finest Bay Area development. So the 4 of us plus our Chinese partners. So we're now building the more detailed plan for the tunnel that will be completed this month. And then what we are also working on, of course, is the funding. Currently we don't have any, let's say, more detail to offer, but what we have done there, current thinking is that 70% of the funding will come from China, because this is actually nicely aligned with their Belt and Road project, so the new Silk Road. and then the rest, remaining 30% from local insurance companies here in the Nordics. So that is kind of like the funding that we're looking at. We also did kind of like a rough business case for this together with the PricewaterhouseCoopers guys. So just by looking at the passenger traffic, we expect the tunnel to pay for itself in 37 years. So it's a good business case, and I think that is something that is very, very important, that when we have a good business case, of course, getting investors on board is not that difficult. Of course, it's 15 billion, but my thinking was that, you know, like how much or how different will this be from raising 50 million for a startup? And actually turns out that it's pretty much the same process. So you kind of do your pitch deck, and then instead of asking for 15 million, you ask for like 15 billion. So it's like a B instead of an M, and it's like a same process. So so far I've gotten very, very good feedback from the investors. So we expect to have more news about that in the not too distant future. But of course we don't need the whole 15 billion like day one. It will like ramp up over time as we go further. And yeah, then another thing that we're working on is now the various planning, like permits, environmental permits. So we are in constant dialogue with the Ministry of the Environment here in Finland, and also the other ministries, initiating the same process now also with the local government, Helsinki, Espoo, Vantaa, Tallinn, and also the kind of national government on the Estonian side. So we started that dialogue very, very early, and the feedback that we got, and that they have been very happy that we did that, because again, we want to be very, very open. This actually event is also part of that we don't want to kind of like surprise people. We want to be very open on where we're at with the tunnel project, the stations, all the planning. And we actually, Kim will talk about that now after me, but we have actually started engaging even, you know, like kids and young people in the planning, because, you know, who cares what us, you know, slightly older people think about like the designs and all that, because it's going to be, you know, you guys and the younger people who will actually end up living in these neighborhoods. So it makes sense to engage people who will actually have to live with all of these things that we're building very early on. So we have been doing that. And then another thing that we also initiated is that we have every month now this kind of like finest Bay Area meetup or gathering open for everybody. So we had the first one last year in December here in Helsinki. Next week, Thursday, we will be in Tallinn. And again, we'll share a bit more detail on like latest in tunnel, you know, drilling technology, some of the plans for the Tallinn side and all of that. But we want to engage people very, very early, very, very openly, because that's how we make the project better. I mean, we've already gotten a lot of fantastic, very valuable input from, you know, people everywhere. So we want to continue doing that. So every month there will be like now meetups where, you know, everybody's invited, and we want to provide constant updates on the progress of the project. And every other month we're in Helsinki, every other month we're in Tallinn. And as I said, next week Thursday we're in Tallinn to share like the latest development. So everybody invited, of course, to participate in those. And yeah, we're building this as I speak. So we will also make the first version of our like finest Bay Area website available shortly, where you can find some of the videos and some of the designs that we'll show during today. So all the presentations, of course, are public and are available. So you will get that. But I will stop my first part here and invite Kim from Trimble to share what their role is in the project, what they have been doing, and then architectural design and what we're doing around the station areas. But I think maybe also one thing that Donald was saying here, that this is, you know, a fantastic construction project, but it's not just the tunnel, it's also the cities, neighborhoods that we're building. So I think that's something that the students here at Metropolia, that's what we're studying. So there will be plenty of opportunity to contribute and work on the various buildings and neighborhoods and things. So one thing that we are creating as part of this I talked a lot about creating center of gravity. We will also create center of gravity for innovation around not only like tunnel and construction, but actually the future of mobility. So we'll also share more details on that in a not too distant future, but it's safe to say that we have been contacted by many people from all over the planet that want to be part of this, and they want to contribute and they want to innovate. So again, everything is progressing according to plan, so you can expect to see not just the tunnel but a lot of other fantastic developments in this area. So that's how we plan to create even more economic growth going forward. So far so good. But now, yeah, over to Kim. Thank you.